Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're navigating a source that's, well, profoundly challenging, yet maybe illuminating in its own way. An erotic memoir titled Dark Autism by Chadmore Wonkor. Our goal here is to try and extract key insights, striving to understand the complex worldview of its author through this intensely personal account.
Yeah.
And just a heads up, this deep dive will delve into some highly graphic and, frankly, at times, deeply disturbing details from the source material.
Very much so.
These details are pretty central to understanding the author's perceptions, so we'll be dissecting this raw stuff not for shock value, but because, well, it feels crucial for grasping the author's unique narrative and maybe the psychological patterns at play.
Indeed. And this isn't just a story someone told. It's framed as an explicit invitation from the author himself to understand, and this is his quote, "why I am so deranged." So as we move through this memoir, we'll be navigating quite a labyrinth. There are these very explicit sexual anecdotes, some genuinely jaw-dropping moments of what he calls derangement, a lot of unintentional absurdity that honestly borders on the surreal.
Yeah, surreal's a good word.
And these glaring contradictions, between his perception and the reality he describes, it's a really unfiltered look at one man's relationships and his struggle to make sense of them. It offers a rare, if deeply unsettling window into a very particular worldview and how one person constructs their own reality.
It really is unsettling to read, and it brings up those fundamental questions. What is truly making this narrative tick? How much is deliberate versus just his unfiltered reality spilling out? How does the author's really intense self-perception clash so dramatically with the events he actually describes? And what can we as listeners, really glean from such an unvarnished and often shocking account of human interaction?
Big questions.
Yeah. So let's try and unpack this. Let's dive deep into dark autism.
Yeah.
Okay, so our journey into Chadmore Wonkor's world, it begins right at the outset with his self-introduction.
Right away.
He immediately paints this picture of himself as someone, well, truly desirable, almost an ideal individual, He describes himself in really glowing terms. A loyal, sincere, genuine, friendly, highly intelligent, very physically fit individual.
Quite the list.
Yeah, and he confidently believes he's attractive to women in my own little way. He even boasts about his physical attributes, stating he towers at 6'1".
Yeah.
Although he later revises that to 6'3".
Interesting detail, the height change.
Right, and details his shaggy long blonde hair, rock-solid pecs and abs. And to top it all off, he's a skilled amateur skater, concluding that these combined qualities make him employable and an ideal man for any woman.
Wow.
It's quite the self-endorsement, isn't it? A portrait of perceived perfection.
What's truly striking here, and you see it immediately, is the cognitive dissonance that just leaps off the page. He presents this almost utopian picture of his own perfection, right? This self-assured declaration of his virtues. Yet in the very next breath, he just unleashes this bitter tirade. He blames people in my area for being snobbish, conceited, pompous, vain, superficial, hypocritical, entitled, and condescending.
The contrast is stark.
It instantly sets up the central contradiction that will just permeate the entire memoir. You're left asking, how can someone so inherently self-assured, so supposedly ideal in his own mind, consistently find himself surrounded by such snobbish people?
Right. Why him?
And why does he seem to be the only individual capable of recognizing his own supposed virtues while everyone else apparently falls short? This initial self-description also subtly clashes, like you feel it right away, with the raw, aggressive, and often self-pitying tone that quickly takes over the rest of the memoir. It hints at the underlying, derangement and distorted perception of reality that we'll be exploring in much, much greater detail. It's like a foundational crack in his self-narrative right from page 1, really laying the groundwork for the unreliability of his whole account.
So this grand self-image just immediately bumps up against this external blame. And speaking of foundations, let's delve into the genesis of Chadmore's self-proclaimed dark autism. That term itself is something.
It really is. Unique to him, it seems.
He attributes it directly to an MMR vaccine he says he received at the tender age of 3 back in the mid-1990s. And he recounts this truly dramatic, almost cinematic event.
Oh, yeah.
He describes immediately losing his ability to speak, passing out, and hearing doctors gravely discuss if they lost him before he was supposedly revived by defibrillators.
The whole 9 yards.
Exactly. The doctor then informs his parents with this tone of grave finality, "I'm sorry, he has a thing called dark autism, and I'm afraid his is the bad version."
Okay, this raises a really important question, right? And frankly, a significant flag regarding the memoir's factual reliability. The specific, almost like fantastical details of this medical event, the immediate neurological collapse, the dramatic defibrillation, and especially the explicit, precise dark autism diagnosis.
Yeah, that's a specific phrase.
It presents a deeply problematic and, well, medically unsubstantiated narrative. I mean, dark autism isn't a recognized medical term.
Right.
So this fantastical origin story for his condition, it serves as an early and very strong indicator of the memoir's subjective and often, frankly, deranged reality. It immediately establishes this pattern where external events are framed through a highly personal and often unhinged lens. It allows him to construct a justification for his later behaviors.
It sets the stage.
Completely. And we see further derangement in his father's purported reaction as Chadmore portrays it. He supposedly erupts in rage, pins the doctor to the wall, calls him a highly offensive slur, a cunt, and threatens to slice him from ear to ear with a scalpel unless his son is cured within an hour.
Wow, that's intense.
The sheer intensity and violent nature of this family reaction, as depicted by Chadmore, immediately paints a picture of an environment where extreme emotional responses, often wildly disproportionate to the situation, aren't just present but seem to be, I don't know, normalized or even glorified within his memory. And that surely shapes his own reactions later on.
That's a truly wild and, disturbing origin story. Really sets the tone for the level of derangement we're going to see. Now, fast forward 20 years from that point, Chadmore once again describes himself in these glowing physical terms, towering at 6'3" in height, with long, wavy blonde hair, immaculately chiseled abs and pecs, and states almost casually that he never had any issue getting laid.
Right, the confidence is back.
And he even reveals a rather graphic detail about his sexual habits, noting that from the moment I started jacking my cock at age 14, I never stopped for a day, leading, quite remarkably, he claims, to a foul-smelling foreskin infection which ensued in circumcision.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. And we encounter another core contradiction that just underpins the entire memoir.
Okay.
Despite the self-proclaimed sexual prowess, right, his physical attractiveness, his apparent ease in getting laid, he immediately pivots to his core struggle. My issues were in maintaining a relationship and finding a woman who didn't end up manipulating, gaslighting, or otherwise narcissistically abusing me.
The blame shifts again.
Exactly. This creates a foundational paradox. He asserts his desirability and sexual success, yet every single relationship ends in disaster, always in his telling, because of the woman's perceived failings.
Never his fault.
Never. He attributes every single failed relationship, every moment of conflict or perceived betrayal, to the woman's disloyalty, deceit, or sociopathic tendencies. He never, not once that I can recall, acknowledges his own role, his own behaviors, or the profound impact of his highly erratic and often aggressive actions.
Actions which he describes in detail.
Vivid, graphic detail throughout the memoir. So this narrative establishes that recurring pattern. Blame external forces for internal struggles. It's a hallmark of the derangement we're analyzing. It highlights a profound inability, or perhaps unwillingness, to connect his own actions with the outcomes of his relationships.
Right. Okay, so let's dive into those relationships then, these erotic encounters, as he frames them.
Yeah, erotic is his term.
Our first relationship deep dive is with Leah. She's a girl he met on a dating site in Stockport, which he famously, or infamously, describes as home to the dirtiest fucking slags in the entire UK.
Charming. Sets the tone, doesn't it?
It really does. What's remarkable is his early, almost immediate, obsessive declarations of love to Leah, telling her, I love you, baby. I'm obsessed with you. I fucking need you, baby. I even love you more than I love my own fucking parents.
And this is before they even meet face to face.
That's right. It's all online or over the phone at this point.
Wow. The speed and intensity of Chadmark's proclaimed love is just...
Well, it's almost immediately contrasted with the highly sexual and often derogatory language he uses to describe their very first physical encounter.
It shifts fast.
Incredibly fast. He details his hand rubbing that warm, fleshy mound beneath her knickers. Dirty sluts. And once they get upstairs, his pulsatingly hard cock slid inside her sticky flange as she supposedly screamed, fuck me harder, while he plowed her slime hole into oblivion, claiming to have banged her a total of 5 fucking times.
That language.
It's jarring. The immediate and frankly whiplash-inducing shift from proclaimed adoration to such crude, objectifying, and aggressive language highlights a significant, derangement in his perception of intimacy and respect.
Yeah.
It's as if the love is just a pretense, or it very quickly dissolves into purely physical and often demeaning interactions. It reveals this profound disconnect in his understanding of emotional connection versus just physical gratification. And from there, the dynamic with Leah takes an even more bizarre turn when we encounter one of the memoir's most infamous sexual anecdotes. This revolves around oral sex and rimming.
Ah, yes. This one stands out.
He describes Leah's tongue ring sending spasms of demonic pleasure as she circled the head of his cock. Then, he says, slowly and seductively inside my asshole, which was still sweaty from the train ride, and the slut did it without even asking.
The detail.
Right. He found the sensation amazing. This culminates in him ejaculating all over her face and tits, and in perhaps the most bizarre detail of all, making her seductively lick it off her tits, comparable to the fashion that you lick the creme from a creme egg out of the chocolate shell with your tongue. Yummy.
The creme egg comparison. It's an utterly striking example of profound, unintentional absurdity.
Really is.
It juxtaposes the highly graphic and intimate with this mundane, almost childish food analogy. This bizarre combination not only highlights the graphic nature of the sexual anecdote, but also Chadmork's truly deranged internal framing of these moments. It forces you, the reader, to confront how personal narratives, especially those born from maybe deep-seated delusion or unresolved internal conflict, can twist reality into something grotesque and utterly nonsensical to an outside observer, often maybe as a subconscious defense against confronting deeper psychological truths. But the absurdity escalates even further. The very next evening, Chadmork describes simulating the rimming sensation himself. He says he lubricated his finger with butter and stuck it in his own arse, achieving what he calls wonker water.
Wonker water. Okay.
He claims to repeat this 3 more times, which leads him to constantly kept a tub of room temperature butter in my bedroom drawer.
Oh my God.
And the climax of this particular absurdity is his mother's unwitting consumption of this secret butter, complete, he says, with fingerprints and stray hairs, making her consume her terminally autistic son's crusty-ass hairs.
I don't even have words for that.
This entire sequence reveals an extreme level of derangement, right? A complete lack of filter in the narrative and a clear tendency toward shock value. It's as if the author is intentionally pushing boundaries with these unsettling details, seemingly without any recognition of how deeply disturbing they are.
Yes, seemingly no self-awareness there. The relationship with Leah, perhaps unsurprisingly, quickly sours after all this.
You'd think.
After she goes cold and very sullen, Chadmork unleashes a tirade. He blames his autism for his inability to read people's feelings properly, stating, "I'm not a fucking mind reader." He then labels her response sexist for calling him out on playing the sympathy card.
Okay, this exchange perfectly highlights Chadmork's ingrained tendency to project blame externally. It's classic. He attributes his communication issues to his autism, effectively using it as a shield, right? While simultaneously demanding hyper-awareness and, ironically, mind-reading from his partners, the very thing he says he can't do.
The contradiction again.
Exactly. And his reaction then escalates to deranged extremes. He describes downing a 70 Slittle vodka and a gram of Peruvian cocaine in a fit of rage. And then he sends Leah a text stating, "Fuck you, bitch. I only got with you as I can't suck my own dick. Fucking lying slut."
Wow. Vicious.
And it gets worse. Later, upon hearing she might have an STD, which he tested negative for, he makes sure to add he wishes that pond life cunt gets a terminal illness the better.
Wishing death on her.
The sheer vitriolic hatred, the violent language, the wish for death, it demonstrates a deep-seated derangement following what he perceives as betrayal. It's a shocking glimpse into his volatile emotional landscape where rejection immediately flips into extreme aggression. And it's a pattern we'll see repeated again and again.
Okay. Moving on to Chadmork's next significant relationship then. We meet Emma. Initially, he describes her as attractive, charming, genuine, good-humored.
Sounds promising.
Yes, but from the outset, there's a clear element of deception. He openly admits to hiding his prolific use of cocaine, amphetamines, and opiates from her. He even sort of jokingly but misleadingly tells her he's a drug addict for antidepressants, coffee, and cigarettes, completely omitting the serious substance abuse.
Right. So that immediately sets a tone of glaring contradiction, doesn't it? Between his stated desire for loyalty and honesty in a relationship and his own deceptive behavior.
Definitely.
It establishes this pattern of hypocrisy that recurs throughout the memoir, undermining his constant claims of being the wronged party. His internal monologue also reveals he was simultaneously dating another girl, Faith, whom he dismisses with really crude language like a typical stupid girl and declares, "Fuck her."
While pursuing Emma.
Exactly. This preemptive condemnation of other women, even as he's pursuing Emma, subtly underscores his own unreliable perspective and his tendency to just devalue women he's no longer interested in or who don't conform to his expectations. It suggests a very transactional view of relationships from his side, even as he decries it in others.
The initial stages with Emma are marked by his extreme anxiety before meeting her for the first time. He copes with this, he says, by chain smoking, smoking a spliff, and snorting cocaine.
His usual coping mechanisms.
Yeah. He describes feeling so anxious he could barely eat my food, and he lists the rather specific and somewhat absurd details of this non-meal. A solitary Mars bar, a shop-bought ham and cheese sandwich, a packet of Quavers, and the Boots brand cookie dough tops chocolate brownie. Quite the balanced diet there.
Right. He even claims his heart was beating so fast he felt like he was being repeatedly punched in the stomach by someone with Down syndrome.
Wow, that simile again.
Yeah.
The vivid, almost comically exaggerated description of his anxiety, culminating in that deeply problematic Down syndrome simile. It adds another layer of unintended absurdity to the narrative. While it paints a picture of his intensely deranged emotional state and how he copes with overwhelming feelings through destructive behaviors, it also reveals a really troubling internal language and a shocking lack of self-awareness regarding the potentially offensive nature of his analogies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's jarring.
It's a moment where you, the reader, are forced to confront both his suffering and his profound insensitivity, highlighting how his internal world is structured.
So their first sexual encounter, much like with Leah, is highly graphic, escalating quickly.
Seems to be a pattern.
After rhythmically groping my meat and his turgid genitals oozing pre-cum, Emma supposedly asks him to fuck my tight pink pussy.
Right.
This quickly escalates to anal sex, where she apparently gasps, "Stick it up my ass, Chad."
Right.
He recounts it going into her tight little asshole as easily as a key going in the lock, and her exclaiming in a truly memorable line, "It's like taking a poo backwards."
There it is, the poo backwards line. It's a prime example of both a highly explicit sexual anecdote and just profound unintended absurdity.
It's unforgettable for sure.
Once again, Tadmork employs these crude physiological analogies during intimate moments, seemingly without recognizing their bizarre impact. The imagery escalates further. He describes semen dripping lasciviously out of her anus onto the floor as she waddled to the bathroom, and his hearing her almighty farting sound as she strained to eject every last drop of Chad chum.
Chad chum.
Yeah. Later, while cuddling, he recounts squelchy farts as the last drops of cum slid out of her bum. This entire sequence is a further testament to the memoir's bizarre and deranged portrayal of intimacy, where the highly sensual is constantly undercut by crude, almost cartoonish bodily functions. It highlights this fundamental disjuncture in his perception of romance versus raw, unfiltered physicality, and how he frames these experiences in his own mind. It's really quite something.
The relationship with Emma later sours, unsurprisingly. Especially after her father, who apparently disapproved of Chadmork's autism, allegedly threatens Emma.
Yeah.
He calls Chadmork a drooling fucking mongoloid, that deeply offensive slur again, and threatens to break every last fucking bone in Emma's body. Chadmork reacts with extreme derangement, telling his mom he'd blade the fat cunt and stick him in intensive care.
Okay, this moment of violent fantasy, it just underscores the depths of his derangement when he feels challenged or disrespected.
Whoa.
It shows how quickly his anger can escalate to extreme violent ideation. It reveals a really frightening internal landscape.
Yeah.
However, the most profound contradiction appears in his later reflection on Emma. This is fascinating. After calling her a fucking two-faced, manipulative bitch, a fucking traitor, and maniacally cackling at her.
Pretty harsh.
Very. He later states, completely reversing course, she was not a snake, she was not a traitor, she was just a young woman that made a mistake. He even goes so far as to wish terminal cancer of the penis upon himself due to his immense guilt over his words.
That's a massive swing.
It's a dramatic and complete reversal of opinion. It's a stark example of his fluctuating, deranged perceptions and his tendency to retroactively reframe his narratives. Maybe it's a coping mechanism to reconcile his own extreme reactions with a later, more rational understanding. Or perhaps it's a fleeting moment of genuine self-awareness that gets quickly overshadowed by his usual patterns.
Could be either.
This oscillation suggests a deeply unstable internal state where reality is constantly being rewritten based on his emotional needs in the moment.
Right. Okay, let's move on to JQ, or J. Chadmore labels her a DPD menace, and this relationship seems perhaps the most tumultuous and illustrative of his deranged cycles.
Yeah, JQ features heavily.
Their online exchanges quickly turn explicit. JQ asks if he wanted her to put her wet, fat mouth around my cock, and Chadmore admits to masturbating on FaceTime, while JQ says, "I want you to come all over me, baby, for your daughter."
Wow, okay. That level of immediate hypersexualized interaction, including masturbating to each other and then him falling asleep, leaving behind sex slime residue, it points to a deeply deranged and unconventional approach to courtship and intimacy right from the very beginning.
Yeah, it's intense from the start.
It signals a complete breakdown of conventional boundaries, or maybe a mutual embrace of the extreme, and the addition of them openly farted on FaceTime to one another further injects this striking element of unintended absurdity into their burgeoning relationship.
More flatulence.
It highlights the bizarre normalization of such acts within their dynamic and Chadmore's utter lack of filter in recounting these details. It's this bizarre mix of the intimate and the utterly grotesque presented just as part of a normal interaction.
There's also a notable exchange where JQ reveals she's a virgin and was abandoned by her father.
Yeah.
Then she asks Chadmore about his autism.
Mm-hmm.
He states, using his own problematic self-description, "I'm a groaning autistic fucking retard,"
Right.
worries about having retarded kids, and mentions he claims benefits.
Right. Very vulnerable moment.
Yeah, and JQ's immediate follow-up, almost comically abrupt, is, "How much benefits do you get?"
Ooh. The abruptness of JQ's question about his benefits, right after such a vulnerable and emotionally charged disclosure from Chadmore. It's a moment of stark, almost uncomfortable absurdity.
It lands weirdly.
It immediately reveals, or at least seems to reveal from his perspective, a transactional, self-interested motive that Chadmore later attributes to all his partners, maybe projecting his own views onto them.
Possibly.
This sets a very clear tone for his perception of JQ's supposed manipulations and foreshadows the deep resentment that's going to build. It emphasizes Chadmore's lens of victimhood, where even seemingly innocent questions are seen as part of some larger scheme against him.
So the meeting with JQ and her friend, Sarah McGunt, whom Chadmore nicknames Gassy for her supposed IBS issues and all the shit she talks, is fraught with tension.
Gassy. He loves these nicknames.
During a seemingly innocent gathering with friends, Gassy casually asks JQ about marrying Chadmore, to which JQ guffaws scornfully and replies right in front of him, "I would never marry him. He's an autistic retard."
Wow. Publicly, in front of him. That's just brutal. A brutal moment of derangement demonstrating a shocking lack of empathy and basic human decency.
Yeah.
Particularly given Chadmore's sensitive disclosures about his autism. That's a deeply cruel statement. And his internal dismissal of it, thinking it might be a joke, despite feeling insecurity, and his heart constricting highlights his willingness to rationalize deeply hurtful behavior rather than confront the painful reality.
Self-deception again.
It protects him from the full impact of the rejection. And the absurdity continues, of course. Chadmore later describes JQ's rancid sleep flatulence after their Mexican meal, that recurring motif of bodily functions intruding on his romantic narratives and contributing to the overall sense of a bizarre, unpleasant, and unfiltered reality. It's like the physical discomfort mirrors the emotional chaos.
It seems that way. The eventual breakup with JQ is a catalyst for escalating derangement. Chadmore, feeling manipulated and betrayed, engages in a series of highly aggressive acts. Screaming, punching his wall, bouting a large chunk out of my bedroom door, and repeatedly screaming "Sienti gantigati" while sobbing.
Okay, this autistic rampage, as he might term it, is a visceral and deeply disturbing depiction of derangement. His emotional pain manifests in self-destructive violence, literally tearing his environment apart. It's a raw display of uncontrolled rage.
And the conflict continues online.
Of course, social media.
He retaliates against JQ and Gassy. When Gassy calls him an ugly cunt, he retorts with an extreme, highly personal attack. "I hope your kid gets taken from you by social services."
Whoa. That demonstrates the depth of his rage and the complete breakdown of any pretense of composure. It shows a truly alarming willingness to go for the most hurtful possible insult, regardless of the target or the consequences. Crossing lines.
Definitely crossing lines. The relationship's final, truly deranged chapter involves Chadmork forcing JQ to engage in perverse role play over text.
Forcing her.
That's how he frames it. He demands she call him sir, and he threatens punishment for backchat and being horrible to me. He later confesses to smashing his window, and plunging a steak knife into his mattress ring. You ain't.
Oh my God.
He even sends JQ a picture of himself holding a steak knife up to his erect penis, asking if this is what she wanted, for me to cut off my own fucking penis. Before his friends, Mikey and Alan, thankfully intervene with Valium to calm him down.
Okay, this sequence represents the absolute peak of derangement in the memoir. It intertwines violence, self-harm, and these perverse sexualized threats in an incredibly disturbing display.
It's terrifying.
And the sexual anecdote of demanding to be called sir and threatening punishment, right after his previous rage at JQ's perceived controlling behavior, it reveals a profound and chilling contradiction.
He hates being controlled but wants to control.
Exactly. He despises control when it's enacted upon him, but seeks to exert it over others in sexually explicit and aggressive ways. This also highlights the cyclical nature of his relationships, as he mirrors the very behaviors he condemns in others. It illustrates his deeply ingrained patterns of relating to women. And that self-harm threat, the intervention, it just underscores the severity of his emotional breakdowns and the precariousness of his mental state.
Okay, next up is Svitzer. She's a heavy-set figure whom he nicknames for her profusely sweating. This encounter introduces, if possible, a new level of sexual grotesquerie and derangement.
Just when you think it can't get stranger.
Right. The immediate red flags appear upon his arrival at her caravan park. He witnesses Svitzer kick her furious German Shepherd Ronson.
It's the dog.
Yeah, and later, disturbingly, put out numerous cigarettes on him out of boredom and frustration.
Putting cigarettes out on the dog, that's horrific animal cruelty, and he just recounts this.
Casually, without significant moral outrage.
Okay, that immediately establishes a disturbing undercurrent of derangement right there.
A profound disregard for living beings that extends beyond human relationships. It sets a very unsettling tone for what's to come, hinting at a callousness that just permeates interactions.
So their sexual encounters quickly escalate to the absurd. After ordering KFC post-Taco Bell.
Food is often involved.
Always. Chadmork recounts Svitzer erratically licking the chicken grease and batter from the drumstick, which, in his mind, morphed into an erect penis. She then, he claims, obliged my fantasy, licking the grease off his finger while he slid another greasy finger into her sticky genitals.
KFC lube. Okay.
He describes licking her pussy while she dildo herself with a drumstick, finding the fried chicken fragrance and wet pussy incredibly horny-inducing.
Wow.
Okay, this is an extreme example of sexual anecdote and profound absurdity. Merging food consumption with explicit sexual acts in a truly deranged and disturbing way that pushes the limits of what you might imagine.
It's out there.
It illustrates this bizarre intersection of desire and the mundane, filtered through Chadmork's unique perception. But it gets even more graphic and unhinged with the whipped cream incident.
Oh, the whipped cream.
Svitzer bends over, spreads her gigantic arse, and demands he cream your princess, leading him to spray whipped cream into her tight little asshole and then lick the excess cream akin to a thirsty dog.
Okay.
She then passionately pushes the rest of the whipped cream out of her arse, which dripped out explosively, accompanied by the odd bit of flatulence. This culminates in her licking his sweaty asshole, calling it, "So good, daddy," spitting in it and putting 2 fingers up there while giving him head.
The level of detail is just staggering.
It really is. The
Right.
sheer absurdity of these acts, it reveals a world of sexual fetishes and boundaries that are completely blurred, illustrating a profound exploration of taboos within their dynamic.
The peak of this deranged sexual encounter involves Svitzer pulling out a strap-on and suggesting pegging. Chadmork describes the excruciating pain, but also a phenomenal tingling sensation when it hit his retarded prostate, using his own problematic self-description again, with his semen polluting her ass.
The inclusion of this detail and his choice of words like retarded prostate further illustrates the deranged and self-deprecating language Chadmork employs, even in moments of extreme physical sensation. It suggests how deeply ingrained this self-labeling is. And immediately following this, the narrative descends into yet another level of absurdity. He describes Svitzer having food poisoning diarrhea with a loud pebble-blasting-like sound and an abhorrent and putrid smell, while still managing to give him a seductive wink and bit her lip. She then demands he lick my asshole as deeply as possible, despite the recent bowel movement, which he deems one-word slut.
After diarrhea, he calls her a slut for asking.
Yeah.
This entire sequence is a masterclass in combining sexual anecdote with extreme, almost incomprehensible absurdity and derangement. It raises serious questions about consent, hygienic boundaries, the nature of intimacy in Chadmork's experiences. It presents a truly unsettling picture of human interaction and the lengths to which he participates in these bizarre acts.
It really does. The relationship eventually ends, with Chadmork recounting Swizzer's debilitating fibromyalgia, which he claims conveniently subsided when his friends were present, only to flare up the second they left.
Ah, the manipulation accusation again.
Leading her to demand he fetch her snacks and empty her cat's litter box, screaming useless if he was too slow.
Okay, so this detail, from Chadmork's perspective, highlights his recurring perception of being used and controlled. It's a theme that echoes across his relationships. Interesting, though, and another contradiction, is his calm resignation right after the breakup. He thinks, whatever, fucks if I do, she can't unrim me. Right. Yet only a few paragraphs later, reflecting on her perceived exploitation, he erupts into deranged fury, telling her, go fuck yourself, bitch.
The swing again.
This rapid oscillation between detached acceptance and explosive rage is a hallmark of his derangement. It illustrates his unstable emotional state and his inability to maintain a consistent perspective, especially when recounting past grievances. It reveals the fragile veneer of his emotional control, which just shatters the moment he feels wronged.
Okay, on to Joss Lossman. Here, the narrative takes an even darker and more disturbing turn, introducing themes of child neglect within what is still framed as Chadmork's erotic memoir.
Yeah, this section is particularly troubling.
He describes having rough sex with Joss, who insisted on no condom use due to her implant.
The sexual anecdotes with Joss immediately veer into deeply disturbing territory. Chadmork recounts having sex in the bathroom while her 2-year-old daughter was tearfully banging on the bathroom door crying for her mummy.
Oh no.
But Joss, he notes, ignored the brat, as she was busy getting her pussy pleasured. He even states, chillingly, I almost feel guilty that the small child definitely learned some new words that night as her mother screams, shove your retard cock harder in my tight tunt daddy. The little brat probably thought her real dad, who abandoned her, had come back on the scene. No such fucking luck, I'm afraid. He's never coming back.
That's profoundly deranged, sexualizing the child's distress.
It reveals a shocking lack of empathy, cloaked in Chadmork's casual, almost observational narrative style. It's truly unsettling to witness how these events are presented without apparent moral judgment or deeper reflection on their impact on the child.
He further details Joss's abysmal mother behavior, screaming shut up at her daughter to maximize sex time and smacking the kid's bum in face or denying her food whenever she spoke out of line.
And this casual recounting of child abuse, framed within an erotic memoir with no discernible moral judgment from the author, it showcases a profound level of derangement and desensitization. The memoir's primary focus on Chadmork's sexual experiences completely overshadows the severe implications of these actions. They're presented as mere observations rather than shocking events. It highlights how warped his priorities and perceptions of appropriate behavior are, particularly in intimate settings. It reveals a chilling detachment from widely accepted social norms.
Amidst all this, another bizarre sexual anecdote emerges. After Chadmork takes a bite of a Mars bar,
Do it again!
Joss implores him to feed me daddy, explicitly stating, the dirty bitch wasn't talking about her face mouth.
Oh, boy.
He then recounts how he dutifully slid the king-size Mars bar into her tight cunt and enjoyed the erotic moanage which ensued while taking care to lick the segments of nougat and chassis that were sloughing off inside her vulva.
Mars bar sex. Okay. This stands out as one of the memoir's most absurd and deranged sexual anecdotes, once again blending food with sexual acts in an extremely explicit and unconventional manner.
It's almost farcical.
It is. It's a farcical portrayal of sexual fetish, once again highlighting the extreme boundaries explored, or rather the complete lack thereof, in Chadmork's experiences. This level of uninhibited and unusual sexual behavior further underscores the derangement that permeates his intimate relationships.
And the relationship with Joss ultimately ends violently. She throws a wine bottle at his head for suggesting a condom.
Suggesting a condom gets a bottle thrown.
Apparently, screaming, don't you dare put on a condom or I will never fuck you again. Do you fucking understand me, you autistic cunt?
Wow. This just further reinforces the pattern of volatile, deranged interactions that dominate Chadmork's romantic life, where even the slightest perceived slight or suggestion can escalate to aggression.
Okay, our final relationship deep dive is with Naomi, whom Chadmork meets through his friend, Harry.
Right, Naomi the Russian, I believe.
Yes. Naomi initially claims Mino wants sex, Mino like it all sex. Yet after drinks, she suddenly initiates sex, saying, "Wanna go fuck, baby."
Okay, so this immediate contradiction between her stated disinterest in sex and her swift, apparently alcohol-fueled initiation. It highlights Chadmork's recurring narrative of women being disingenuous, or, as he labels Naomi, psycho.
Yeah, he jumps right to psycho.
He attributes her sudden sexual eagerness to her being a Mrs. I Know-like sex, who initiated a bonk sesh, completely ignoring the influence of alcohol on her behavior, or maybe his own actions leading up to that moment. It demonstrates his tendency to frame events in a way that confirms his pre-existing biases about women's deceptiveness.
The morning after their first sexual encounter, Harry reveals he could hear all the banging sounds, which mostly were "I'm gonna come" from her, followed by a grotesque orgasming sound that sounded like a pig being slaughtered.
A pig being slaughtered, that description. It adds an element of dark, unintended absurdity to the narrative. It effectively dehumanizes the sexual act and the woman involved, while reinforcing Chadmork's highly subjective and often deranged perceptions of women's bodies and sounds during intimacy.
But pretty crude.
It's another example of his bizarre internal framing, where even moments of pleasure are viewed through a lens that devalues and distorts.
Naomi's clinginess quickly becomes a major source of derangement for Chadmork. He describes her groping his cock, which she inexplicably nicknames Mr. Stinky, on the back of a public bus.
Mr. Stinky on a public bus. Okay.
He even recounts his internal thought process of simplifying his English for her. "Me will fuck pussy hard when I get home. Mr. Stinky very horny."
The Mr. Stinky anecdote, combined with the public nature of the act, showcases a high degree of sexual absurdity and derangement. Chadmork appears to be both irritated by and yet aroused by her inappropriate behavior.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
It highlights his own internal contradictions and the bizarre boundaries he navigates, or rather ignores. This episode encapsulates the strange mixture of revulsion and attraction that defines many of his encounters, where his stated desire for respect often clashes with his participation in outlandish and public sexual acts.
He also recounts her inability to play video games, winning 21-0 in FIFA against her, finding her utterly useless. And he's genuinely offended that she had tried telling me about how good she was at it. Why even lie about something so fucking stupid?
Offended by her being bad at FIFA.
Apparently.
Yeah.
This frustration is compounded by her extreme clinginess, demanding attention and snatching his phone, throwing it across the room while he's texting his mother. All of this, by the way, is happening while both were experiencing extreme flatulence from Mexican food, making the room smell like a barnyard.
The flatulence returns. These details pile on the absurdity, right? Showcasing how mundane domestic interactions can transform into moments of extreme frustration and derangement for Chadmork. The strong olfactory details, describing the room as smelling like a barnyard, contribute to the overwhelming sense of a chaotic, unpleasant, and utterly unfiltered reality he inhabits.
Yeah.
What's also crucial here, though, is Chadmork's own decision to marry a friend on Facebook as banter, specifically to flip her lid and provoke Naomi.
So he's stirring the pot.
Deliberately. This demonstrates his own manipulative and deranged tactics. It reveals that he is not merely a passive recipient of others' actions, but an active participant in creating chaos and emotional distress. Harry even acknowledges Chadmork was gaslighting her a little.
A moment of insight from Harry.
It is a significant moment of potential self-awareness relayed through a friend, but it's quickly contradicted by Chadmork's continued aggressive and manipulative behavior. It shows how difficult it is for him to truly internalize his role in these conflicts, even when it's pointed out to him.
Right. Okay, so that brings us towards the end of the memoir, where he sort of tries to pull it all together with his overarching worldview.
His grand theory.
He posits what he calls a conspiracy, wondering why he receives absolutely no respect from 80% of the female species I have met in terms of dating. He neatly categorizes them all as BPD menaces, selfish cows, or girls that get bored and just discard me.
Okay, so this consolidates his deeply entrenched and, frankly, deranged worldview. Women are inherently malicious, unstable, or simply discard him out of boredom. There's no room for nuance.
None.
He then provides the self-defined list of symptoms of a BPD menace, which includes traits like veering from idealization to devaluation, highly volatile personal relationships, chronic emptiness, mood swings and aggressive behavior, emotionally manipulative and vindictive, and impulsivity, grandiosity, and narcissism.
Sounds familiar.
Right. He then explicitly lists the women from his memoir, J.Q., Gassy, Joss, Laura, Leah, Swesser, as examples that perfectly fit this criteria he's laid out. This illustrates his pattern of pathologizing others to explain his own difficulties. He's basically creating a framework to absolve himself of any responsibility.
But here's where a crucial contradiction emerges.
Uh,
It's a moment that almost provides a fleeting glimpse of self-awareness.
this part. Yeah.
Chadmork then asks, sure, I had an informal diagnosis of BPD to get psychiatric help I needed in 2017, so I'm sat on the fence about it. But do I attract who I am? Literally.
That question. It's a rare, almost startling moment of self-reflection within a memoir, otherwise just dominated by external blame.
It jumps out.
It directly contradicts his consistent externalization of blame and his fervent belief in a conspiracy throughout the entire narrative. It hints at a flicker of insight into his own potential role in the chaos and dysfunction of his relationships.
But only a flicker.
Exactly. The insight is fleeting. He quickly dismisses it as he returns to his core deranged belief that no matter where I go, there's no escape from BPD menaces. I attract them no matter, maiden. This serves as a potent example of how deeply entrenched his derangement is and how quickly he retreats from any genuine self-awareness back into his established patterns of blame and victimhood.
Yeah.
It's a powerful illustration of the human mind's profound resistance to self-blame, often preferring to construct elaborate external conspiracies rather than face uncomfortable truths about one's own agency or pathology.
He then recounts further relationships that just reinforce this BPD menace theory for him. He describes a girl named Lucy who love-bombed him, showering him with attention and gifts, only to ghost him. His friend Mikey labels her a BPD menace.
Convenient.
In another instance, a girl blocks him simply because he can't drive due to medical reasons, which he finds absolutely outrageous.
Okay, and this final rejection, the one about not being able to drive, it sends Chadmork into a truly deranged fantasy.
Yeah.
He writes, "It's a shame I can't fucking drive, or else I might have gone and driven my car straight into her fucking house."
Whoa. That's a terrifying glimpse into the unchecked rage and violent ideation that surfaces when his self-perceived ideal man status is challenged.
Exactly. It reveals the dangerous depths of his internal fury when he feels slighted or rejected. It shows a complete inability to cope with perceived inadequacy without resorting to extreme, destructive thoughts.
He then details yet another online encounter. A girl, after weeks of conversation and sharing similar interests, suddenly tells him at 1 a.m. she's horny and playing with her Guzzbox.
Cuzzbox.
Okay. He offers to eat her pussy, suggests bareback sex, and sends a suggestive Snapchat of himself with a duvet covering his leg, but seductively exposing some skin so as to tease her, asking, "Get my pork hard and I'll see what I can do for you. Is that a good deal?" She immediately deletes him.
And his reaction to being deleted is predictable, a striking mix of derangement and absurdity.
Let me guess.
He says, "Surely to God, if she was interested in me as a person, she would have communicated she doesn't want pics. What am I, a fucking mind reader?"
A mind reader thing again.
Exactly. He immediately labels her another BPD menace, completely dismissing the possibility of miscommunication, the girl's personal boundaries, or his own potentially inappropriate approach. This highlights his consistent expectation of mind reading from women, an ironic characteristic considering he accused Leah of not doing the same for him earlier.
Total lack of self-awareness.
And his casual dismissal of any wrongdoing on his part, including his defensive, "I didn't even send a picture of my hard circumcised quack, and I never would unless asked to," further contributes to the overall absurdity and self-deception of his narrative. It shows an extreme inability to understand social cues or the concept of personal boundaries when it conflicts with his immediate desires.
So he concludes his reflections with this pervasive belief that women are in abundance conspiring against me, and whenever they get a slight hint of me being a kind and generous man, they begin plotting against me.
The grand conspiracy.
He also mentions his friends Harry and Mikey talking him out of, frankly, bigoted misogynistic views, and his attempts to hate the individual rather than the gender.
Right. So this admission that he needs to be talked out of misogynistic views while still clinging to a conspiracy theory about women, it just underscores the deep-seated derangement in his perception of gender dynamics.
It's a fundamental contradiction.
Exactly. Acknowledging a problem and the influence of his friends, while simultaneously embracing the underlying prejudice and paranoia. He knows he has issues with women, but he can't fully internalize the idea that the problem might originate with him rather than some widespread plot.
Yeah.
This reveals the formidable psychological defenses he has erected, making genuine change incredibly difficult, even when confronted by those closest to him.
However, there's a final surprising twist. Chadmork exempts one ex-girlfriend, Sinead, from his extensive BPD menace list.
Ah, yes, the Sinead exception. This is fascinating.
He states she is one of the very few women out there that has ever shown me any ounce of respect. He acknowledges her BPD symptoms, listing them directly, changing clans all the time, crying for no apparent reason, and being exhausting.
So he sees the symptoms he usually condemns.
But he genuinely liked her. He understands her desire for children after his vasectomy, which he attributes as a catalyst for their breakup, stating, Sinead deserves nothing short of the best, and I will always have her back.
Okay, this final detail presents a stark and really fascinating contradiction to his treatment of every other woman in the memoir.
It really stands out.
It offers this glimmer of genuine empathy and respect, contrasting sharply with the vitriol, objectification, and outright hatred he directs at others. This begs the question, right? Why Sinead? Why is she the exception?
Mm-hmm.
Does it suggest a genuine, albeit rarely seen, capacity for different kinds of relationships, however fleeting? Or is it because, maybe, she left him first, providing him with a clean break that prevented him from escalating into the usual patterns of rage and blame, thus preserving her image in his mind as an exception?
That's an interesting thought. The dynamic was different.
This final note leaves us with a lingering question about the true nature of his derangement and the potential for selective perception within his own narratives. It's almost as if, when he feels he wasn't wronged in the typical pattern he expects, he can allow himself a moment of grace and acknowledge the humanity of another, which, frankly, makes his treatment of all the others seem even more striking and deliberate.
Wow. Okay. What a journey through Chadmork Wankor's dark autism and erotic memoir. We've definitely uncovered layers of sexual anecdotes that push every boundary imaginable.
Absolutely.
Moments of derangement that are truly unsettling and, a surprising amount of unintentional absurdity that just makes you stop and question what you just heard.
And through it all, we see that striking pattern of contradictions, don't we? Chadmork's self-proclaimed virtues against his actual actions, his stated longing for stable relationships against his profoundly destructive behaviors, and his fierce condemnation of women against his own acknowledged BPD diagnosis. This memoir, despite its often shocking and deeply unsettling content, provides a raw, unfiltered look at an individual really grappling with his reality, his past relationships, and his deeply entrenched perceptions.
Indeed. And what's particularly striking, I think, beyond just the graphic details, is how this memoir forces us to confront the unreliability of self-narrative, isn't it? This isn't just a collection of lurid tales. It's presented as an attempt at self-analysis, an explicit effort to explain his own derangement.
Right, that was the stated goal.
So after hearing this deep dive, consider this. In an account so steeped in subjective reality, extreme emotions, and these constant glaring conflicting narratives, what does it ultimately reveal about the stories we tell ourselves to make sense of our own lives? And how reliable are those stories, especially when the author explicitly sets out to justify his own derangement? What stands out to you from this deeply personal and at times profoundly disturbing deep dive?